Trudeau does the shuffle, but will he hang on? This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The political week is ending much as it began, with questions about just how long Justin Trudeau can hang on as Liberal leader. There are conflicting stories about what could be ahead for the Prime Minister. Some are suggesting he has made up his mind, he will resign, and it's just a matter of putting the pieces in place on how his successor is chosen. But other stories suggest Mr. Trudeau isn't going anywhere. Some say he thought about it, quitting, but was talked out of it by some of his most loyal supporters, like his Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, and one of his closest friends, the new Minister of Finance, Dominic LeBlanc. Speaking at an event in his home province of New Brunswick, LeBlanc told news reporters the business of the government goes on. The Prime Minister is listening to his critics, but the more important issue now is managing the Canada-U.S. relationship.
The Prime Minister listened carefully when that view was expressed to him. Colleagues did what is the appropriate thing. They, in a caucus meeting, expressed those views directly to the Prime Minister himself. He listened. He, in some cases, responded to specific things that were raised. And he said he would reflect carefully on what he's heard. That's how the process works. That's the way these things are decided. And I'm confident that the government will remain focused on the work that Canadians want us to focus on. If we're potentially 5 weeks away from 25% tariffs applied across the board to Canadian exports to the United States, Canadians would understandably, I think, be impatient with a government that looks at itself all the time. We shouldn't be looking inward. We shouldn't be worrying about ourselves. The government got the confidence of the House of Commons 10 times last week. So the opposition parties that are all outraged, they need an election right away, they voted confidence in the government 10 times last week.
But what about the job of finance minister after Chrystia Freeland's resignation? Whatever happened to Mark Carney becoming the finance minister? LeBlanc said he's the finance minister now, and he'll keep that job until at least the next election.
When the Prime Minister asked me to be the finance minister, he told me that I was going to be the finance minister in his government until the next election, that I was going to be the finance minister to present the next budget, and 2025 will be an election year. So that's the work that I'm doing. And again, I wasn't part of any conversations with Mr. Carney, but Mr. Carney isn't about to become Canada's finance minister in the short term. The Prime Minister asked me to start that work. And to get ready for a budget in the spring.
And what advice would you give the Prime Minister to reset the government with a new cabinet?
Again, that's the prerogative of the Prime Minister. I may or may not have a conversation if he asks me views on some colleagues. Sometimes he has, sometimes he hasn't. Those are private conversations. If a member of Parliament or a minister talks publicly about those conversations, normally you wouldn't be part of that cabinet for long.
LeBlanc is still the Minister of Finance after this latest cabinet shuffle, but he's not the Minister of Public Safety anymore. That role is going to David McGuinty. It's been a rough week, not just for the Prime Minister, but for all the other Liberal cabinet ministers and MPs, because everywhere they go, this is all they get asked about, Justin Trudeau's leadership. Take, for example, the Justice Minister, Arif Virani, was at an event in Toronto yesterday, and almost all of the questions were about Justin Trudeau.
What I would say to you is that there's a lot of discussions about what is going to transpire or not. I cannot provide you clarity and answers about people's futures. I can speak for myself and the work that I've been asked to do, and I am very pleased and very honored to have this role, and I'm going to execute the work that the Prime Minister asked me to execute on, and that work conforms with the reason why I originally ran for office, which is to promote equality, combat discrimination, and defend people's rights, and that's what I will continue to do.
Understood. As a follow-up, what statements from Chrystia Freeland's resignation letter do you agree with?
So what I'd say to you with respect to Chrystia is that I have known her for a long, long time. And I know her to be an incredible colleague, an incredible parliamentarian, and I would count her as a friend. And I want to just take this opportunity just to salute her distinguished record of serving in so many portfolios in this country, and saluting her contributions to Canada. And I'm very encouraged that she continues to run and will continue to run in the forthcoming election. And I respect Christie a great deal.
So Mr. Trudeau has now shuffled his cabinet again. And there's going to be a cabinet meeting this afternoon, but that hardly puts to bed the questions surrounding his future and whether he stays or goes. Gary Keller is the Vice President of Strategy Corps. He says the conventional wisdom would suggest Mr. Trudeau should resign. But with Mr. Trudeau, you just never know.
Prime Minister Trudeau, I put nothing past him, and driven largely by his own view of how he sees the world, and the people still around him as well. You know, I've heard people talking to the Prime Minister's office saying, you know, in the last, weeks ago, saying, man, it's the numbers, they're really terrible, man, what are you guys thinking? And the response has been, yeah, they've not been great, but, he's a great campaigner. He just connects with people so well on the campaign trail that we think we're going to be okay. And so if he still continues to believe that, why would he quit? Everyone else is wrong. He's got the answer. I think the conventional wisdom is that he goes, and the non-conventional wisdom is that he tries to stay.
Nick McRoberts is a vice president with Winston Wilmot. He says Mr. Trudeau has to decide what he wants his legacy to be.
His hubris is a fickle thing, the Prime Minister's, and he cares much about his reputation. But to that effect, I do think that he will start to realize the damage that has already been caused, and the damage that will continue to happen to that legacy and reputation if he needs to have a tete-a-tete with President-elect Trump, if he is going to face leadership challenges internally, and if he is going to go into an election and take the Liberals down to, potentially third-party status. I right now probably would bet that he's going to leave.
Okay.
But nothing would surprise me at this point.
As for other notable moves from this cabinet shakeup, Toronto MP Nate Erskine-Smith is the housing minister. Anita Anand, no longer the president of the Treasury Board. That is going to Jeanette Petitpas-Taylor, but Anand will remain the Minister of Transport. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
With our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, Barry McLoughlin is back, the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. He lectures at the Telford School of Management at the University of Ottawa and at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. Welcome back.
Great to be with you, Rob.
What a week.
Oh, my God.
What a week. Let's start with a review of this incredible week in Canadian politics. I've heard it said, Barry, this week's events will be a case study in how not to handle issues management. Now, you're an expert in issues management. What were the big mistakes here?
Well, it all began with the Prime Minister thinking he had some deal. We're assuming with Mark Carney doesn't have the deal 2 or 3 days before the biggest financial economic statement we're all waiting for. Chrystia Freeland is not locked in, walks away with an incredible scorching letter to the Prime Minister, and the whole thing blew up. So classic mismanagement, first of all, of people. She has been with him from the get-go, and to treat her like this at the end is pretty outrageous. So that is hugely damaging. Secondly, the just sort of chaos going on. We didn't know, was that statement going to actually be tabled? There was a lot of huge questions. I was, up there doing some interviews, and it really was chaotic. Nobody knew from minute to minute during that day what was happening. He's trying to settle the waters, obviously, and this act today of shuffling the cabinet is a very important part of that. So the waters are still roiled, but the surface is a little calmer than it was at the beginning of the week.
You make of these reports. The Prime Minister's office is shocked and caught off guard by Freeland's resignation. Didn't learn about it until 2 hours before it happened. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, from everything we know, the relationship was damaged several weeks before this, leaking of information about her in the media. She wasn't a team player. She was this, she was that, not a good communicator, blah, blah, blah. This is somebody that, she was deputy prime minister, very, very important person in this. There was no upside to doing that. Couldn't seem to offer her anything else except this, and of value. And so in the end, it was, and not only that, as the most senior woman in the cabinet, when he's, waving flags of being a feminist and, wishing that we had Kamala Harris as our president south of the border, all these kind of things. Oh my God, this reminds us of how he treated a number of female ministers in the past. Yeah, that brings all that back. So it couldn't have been more disastrous than that. I've never seen the incompetence of that before.
Mark Carney's been nowhere this week. He's not in the cabinet. Nobody knows where he is, I don't think, right now. He's just disappeared off the radar. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a smart move. I mean, I actually had said, to you or somebody that, I have all along said he will not be joining the cabinet, because why would he do that? There's no upside to that. He has to be changed versus more of the same if there is a leadership race. And he can't claim he's changed when he's sitting in there as the finance minister. Nobody cares how many months you've been in doing it. And he would have damaged himself. That is a sinking ship. He would have been jumping just on time as it was departing. The dock, he was going to jump on board this sinking ship. So he was smart not to. I don't know what signals he had given them that they seemed to interpret he was going to come on. And he was very smart not to do this. Yes, of course, he has to disappear, because is it ever awkward, trying to describe your way through all this? Not a good idea. So I believe he's not even in the country. But anyway, so that was, sometimes it's good to get that, never get between you and the fire, So why jump in there? Just, let it happen. And that's not hurting him that it's happening. In fact, it's increasing the pace through which he may end up, obviously in one of the key players in any leadership race that would emerge.
These leaks to the media, reading the stories, it appears to me that the Globe and Mail kind of became the conduit for both sides to air dirty laundry. Would you agree?
They've been doing that since, remember Stephen Harper and Mike Duffy and everything else. Boy, they were all over all those stories, and, the leaks would go to Bob Fife and the Globe, and those guys are really good at this. They do protect their sources. They're very good at that. They never leak who their sources are, and they seem to get a jump on everybody else. So they were played like a fiddle. Like, that was perfect. If you want to do damage and claim that your hands are clean, that's the way to do it, and they did it.
Okay. When we come back, we'll talk about what could be ahead, various scenarios for Justin Trudeau. With Barry McLoughlin from TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants, I'm Rob Snow. Here on a Friday with you. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Back with Barry McLoughlin, the president of TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants. I mean, your pad is not far from Rideau Hall. You're not staking out the chili cabinet shuffle, Barry.
No, I can kind of see them all driving in there. They drove around the back.
Cold day in the nation's capital. Cold day to be waiting for newly sworn-in cabinet ministers. We're not sure if Justin Trudeau is going to say anything. There's a cabinet meeting in about let me think here, an hour and a half or so. 2.5 hours from now, I believe, is the cabinet meeting. So I don't know. Do you think he's going to say anything after this?
No, I do not.
You don't think so? Okay.
No. I don't think he will. He'll open a door that he can't close, and he's got to spend day after day trying to close the door. No, I don't think he will. He doesn't need to. He can issue a statement, blah, blah. He should only open his mouth when he's made a decision what he's going to do.
Okay. Welcome to the team, working hard for Canadians, and that'll be that. Okay, so there is a line of thinking. There's no way he can recover from this. There's no way he can remain the Liberal Party leader, and what he has to do is orchestrate a graceful exit. How does he do that?
Well, this I'm very confident in. I've been feeling it for quite some time. This plus $4 gets you a ride on Ottawa's much lamented LRT system. But anyway, the bottom line is that he has to be in the Prime Minister's chair as Prime Minister with full powers on January 20th. One of two things are going to happen. If Trump announces, hey, guess what? Canada put $1 billion in the border, and because of me, they've strengthened it, so I'm not going to do the tariffs. Who gets to be the kind of heroic Canadian political figure? Justin Trudeau did the right thing. Good for you, Justin. Second option, probably more likely, the 25% tariff gets hit on Canada, and he has to execute the countervailing duties and stand up for Canada. He will do that and counter tariffs, which is, of course, on January 20th, and that means that on January 27th, when the House of Commons is scheduled to resume, he has to make a decision between the 20th and the 27th as to what he's going to do. I believe he will go to the Governor General, ask to prorogue, and then he's got up to 90 days to throw open a leadership race to have him replaced. And he'll stay on in the office, doesn't have to leave. He's not facing Parliament anyway, and he runs the country for 3 months, and then it's the handover to a new leader, and then good luck to you, sir or ma'am, for your new job as Prime Minister. I believe that's what's going to happen. I don't believe he's staying in. I don't believe he's not completely, he now knows this is the final straw. He now knows I've hit rock bottom here. The recovery is not going to be enough. I could take down many dozens of MPs with me that I otherwise may not have to, and I got to own the whole disaster. I can hand it off undefeated as the Prime Minister of Canada. It's hard to make it more appealing than that.
Okay. We only have about a minute and a half here. Pierre Poilievre, by the way, my guest right after the news in just a few minutes' time. Year-end interview with Pierre Poilievre. What should he be projecting right now? What should he be saying, doing? What would you say?
Well, I think he's already started. I mean, he is indicating that it doesn't matter really who the leader is. The damage has been done to the economy, et cetera. He's been on that case. He's made a very strong case for it. He is, basically setting out, it wasn't just what's happened in the last, extra 50% of the deficit this year that we didn't know about before, but he's going to, tie that into the legacy issue of the spending and out of control, et cetera, et cetera. And it just reinforces him. He's in a strong position. All he needs to do is not break into jail. He should not, go outside the zone of this. This is often tempting when you're 20 points ahead. It's very, very tempting to imagine government under Pierre Poilievre and start to get into things that you're not even consulted with. It starts to go a little, the ice gets thin real fast under you. I don't think he's shown a lot of discipline. I think he just keeps his disciplined approach going. And, Canadians, we always know, they don't vote in a new government, they vote out the existing government. He knows that, and he needs to stay steady on the course. Okay.
Well, look, this is our last conversation of the year, Barry. I really enjoy your contributions all year. Look forward to picking things up in the new year. We're going to have a lot to talk about as soon as we're back in about 2 weeks from now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you.
All the best to you and Laura. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Barry McLoughlin, the head of TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants. My interview with Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, is coming up right after the news on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It's been an incredible week in Canadian politics, and it's been another big year for our next guest. The leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, Pierre Poilievre, was named Canada's Newsmaker of the Year by the Canadian Press for the second year in a row. And he is the head of a party that holds a commanding lead in the public opinion polls as questions swirl about the future of Prime Minister Trudeau. Pierre Poilievre is with us now. Thanks for joining us again.
Thanks, Rob. Great to be with you.
We are speaking about 45 minutes before the Prime Minister's latest cabinet shuffle, which could cap a historic week in Canadian politics with the resignation of the Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland. In your opinion, what are the ramifications of all of this political uncertainty in Ottawa?
It's a chaotic clown show that is costing Canadians dearly. And it's showing weakness to the world. Our dollar has tanked since Monday when the finance minister resigned mere hours before she would present a deficit that was a massive 55% over budget, an eye-watering $62 billion deficit. His own deputy prime minister has lost confidence in him. And then you have all these opportunistic liberals who now, not because they are feeling guilty about doubling housing costs or doubling the number of people who need food banks or releasing criminals into our street to cause chaos or breaking our immigration system, but because they're worried about losing their seats. Now they've turned on Justin Trudeau. And they're very blunt about it, that they don't care about the damage he's done. They care about the fact that he's not popular anymore. All these liberals, whether it's carbon tax Carney or Chrystia Freeland or these otherwise no-name backbench liberal MPs, they all helped Trudeau. They all enabled him to do the damage that he has done to our country. The only solution is to have a carbon tax election now so that we can elect a prime minister who's solid and strong, has the brains and backbone to put Canada first.
Okay, let's kind of look at this from 10,000 feet up. It has been said that any prime minister has two jobs. One is to keep the country united, and the other is to maintain friendly relations with the United States. And I would like to ask you about the second job first. If you were prime minister, what would you do to make sure the Canada-U.S. relationship remains mutually beneficial given the tariff threat from the incoming Trump administration?
First, I would put our country first. I would state to President Trump and to the whole world, Canada will never be the 51st state of the U.S. We have a heroic past, a great people, and a brilliant future as an independent country. We happen to live next to the biggest economic and military superpower the world has ever seen. But the president has concerns about our border and our military. So I would say, look, we do need to rebuild our military after the NDP Liberal government destroyed it. We need drones and helicopters, boots on the ground, scanners at our ports to stop the rampant flow of deadly drugs, guns, stolen cars, and human trafficking. We also need to rebuild our military by diverting funds away from foreign aid, back office bureaucracy, and procurement boondoggles and putting that into frontline equipment and recruitment of our brilliant men and women who will have a warrior culture, not a woke culture. And I think that will give a lot of ease to the incoming president about our reliability in keeping his northern flank safe. I'll also say to the president, though, yes, it's true, we have a trade surplus with America, but that's not at his expense, it's at ours. It's not because we're ripping him off, it's because we're ripping ourselves off. We have blocked, under Trudeau and the NDP, they've blocked pipelines, LNG plants, and refineries. So we have to send our raw materials to the Americans at a massive discount, and they make all the profit and the wages off of those. So we've been donating this money to the Americans, and my plan is to reverse that by unleashing production here in Canada. Let's repeal the anti-energy laws, axe the carbon tax, and remove the red tape so that we can upgrade our own resources in Canada rather than being permanently dependent on the Americans.
On the other big job, keeping the country united. Western Canada is very angry with the government in Ottawa. There are disagreements on too many issues to list right now. In Quebec, it appears the Separatist Parti Québécois could win the next provincial election in Quebec, and it's promising another sovereignty referendum. If you were the prime minister, what would you do to heal these divisions and keep the country together?
And not to mention the other more terrifying divisions, like these anti-Semitic riots that have exploded onto our streets, the foreign conflicts that have now spilled into Canadian neighborhoods that have been going on for centuries around the world, whether it's the Middle East or India or elsewhere, and never affected Canada within its borders. Now, after 9 years of Trudeau dividing our people, losing control of immigration and borders, we have people terrorized by these radical uprisings. So it all has to stop. So, one, we have to get control of our borders. We have to expel anyone who breaks laws or participates in hate festivals against synagogues. We have to stop attacking our regions of our country. Like, let's get Ottawa out of the lives of Quebecers and Albertans. Let's have a smaller government that respects its own jurisdiction, and let's Albertans do what they want with their economy. Let's Quebecers have their more autonomy over their culture. That's how Harper did it. And guess what? The separatists were dead in Quebec, and they were unheard of in Alberta. And by the way, we had about 75% less hate crime across the country. So we know the formula. It's to have a small government that does its job well and leaves people alone, and then they live their lives peacefully and harmoniously.
Our special guest today is the leader of the Conservative Party and the leader of the official opposition, Pierre Poilievre. We'll be back with more. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
I'm here with the Conservative Party leader, Pierre Poilievre. There have been 3 Conservative governments in my lifetime. I'm in my early 50s. There was the brief minority government of Prime Minister Joe Clark. There was the transformative government of Brian Mulroney. And then there was the government that you were part of, Stephen Harper's government. What lessons have you learned from these previous Conservative prime ministers, and how would a government led by you be different or the same?
Well, I think we need to get back to the common sense consensus that predominated from 1984 with the election of Brian Mulroney until 2015 with the departure of Stephen Harper. And I include, frankly, the Liberal governments of Chrétien and Martin in that common sense consensus. The Liberals believed in liberty. Conservatives believed in conserving it. We all believed in balanced budgets and free markets, free trade, small government, less bureaucracy. We all agreed that if someone did a bunch of crimes, they should stay in jail so they didn't terrorize our communities. We all agreed with immigration to bring people here who could integrate and get a job and a home, but we kept the levels and the screening to protect our national interests. That was the common sense consensus that made this the envy of the world. And so my message to both Liberals and Conservatives who enjoyed that incredible golden era for our country is, let's build the future on that same common sense consensus.
I take a lot of calls from listeners, Mr. Poilievre, from all across the country, from Western Canada, Atlantic Canada, Southern Ontario. This year, I've taken a lot of calls from people who support you. I've taken calls from people who don't support you and say they won't vote for you. And one of the concerns I often hear from people who don't support you is the issue of foreign interference and your refusal to get the security clearance and read that unredacted intelligence report. Some of your doubters have gone so far as to suggest there must be something in your background that makes it impossible for you to get that security clearance. What would you tell people who have these doubts?
Well, it's false. I was already a cabinet minister, and I will add that the government has the ability to tell me any time if there is anyone interfering in the Conservative Party without swearing me to secrecy. It would be stupid for me to take an oath of secrecy on one of the biggest public policy issues and also have the inability to act on whatever intelligence they gave me. So if I do a secrecy oath and the thesis comes and says, "Well, you've got this problematic person," theoretically, I would be banned from actually telling my party or my caucus. My caucus would have to vote on expelling that person without knowing anything about the details, because I would be banned from saying anything to them. So what I've said to them is use the powers you have under the CSIS Act already to tell me if there's anyone in our caucus or in our party that has knowingly worked with a foreign government. And I have seen no evidence whatsoever that that is the case. So that's why I've taken the approach I have. And it's why, by the way, let's be honest, Justin Trudeau is the one that has turned Canada into a playground for foreign interference. We didn't hear these problems before he came along, and knowingly allowed Beijing to interfere in 2 consecutive elections, knowingly had caucus members who he had been compromised. He'd been briefed on their past activities and collaborations with Beijing. And so they're using this as a distraction from their own guilt in this affair.
Okay.
And by the way, the one last thing I will say, Rob, is I am the only leaders that's saying release the names. If there are MPs that have knowingly worked for a foreign government, put it out, publish it. I'm not afraid, because I'm confident that we've done everything right, but put the names out publicly and let Canadians decide for themselves.
The House of Commons is supposed to return on the 27th of January, whether that will happen or not, or whether the House will be prorogued or not. Who knows what the next days or weeks might bring. When do you think the next election will be?
2 words, Jagmeet Singh. Jagmeet Singh is the only one who can decide. He's the one keeping Trudeau in power right now. He voted against a non-confidence motion little more than 10 days ago. We would be a third of the way through the election campaign right now had he voted otherwise. But, of course, his pension doesn't kick in until February. And so we're now held hostage. 41 million Canadians are held hostage by one man's desire to have a pension. And I think that is totally unacceptable. He needs to put the country before his pension and vote for an axe-to-tax election now.
All right, I asked you this last year. You didn't have an answer at that time. I'm going to ask you again this year. What is your New Year's resolution?
I would say it's to fix what Trudeau broke and bring home the country that we knew and still love. And the reason why I can answer that this year is because the election is going to be next year. And so I need to win so I can, for example, axe the carbon tax and take GST off new homes so kids in places like Riverside South and Barrhaven, Kanata can afford a home again, get the spending under control, bring in tougher laws for criminals, all of that. That's how we're going to fix the country, and that's my New Year's resolution.
Okay. All the best to you and your family. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Pierre Poilievre. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much, Rob, and Merry Christmas to your family. Bye now.
Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party and the leader of the official opposition. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
So it is Cabinet Shuffle Day in the nation's capital. Some of the cabinet ministers have emerged to take some questions from the news media. No sign of Prime Minister Trudeau yet. Doubtful that he would address the news media today, but you never know. He may also be meeting with the Governor General, who knows, to request a prorogation of Parliament, or who knows, maybe even call an election. Doubtful now that we've had a cabinet shuffle, however. But as you can imagine, there are lots of questions about Prime Minister Trudeau's future, his leadership. Can he remain as the leader of the Liberal Party? And here's a little bit of that, some questions from news reporters to some of the cabinet ministers just moments ago.
Number of members of your caucus who no longer have confidence in the Prime Minister. By accepting these positions, you are confirming your support for him. To each of you, why do you think he deserves it?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Darren Fisher, Member of Parliament for Dartmouth Cole Harbour and the Minister for Veterans Affairs. I would say I'm so proud to serve with all of my colleagues in the House of Commons on all parties. But what I would say is I would ask that at this time, this very critical juncture, that we all push in the same direction. We have issues left, issues right, and issues in front of us. It's important that we all ran to serve Canadians. And you will never have to ask me twice to serve Canadians. And it's time that we all get on the same track and work hard to solve the issues that are facing us in the near future.
And I'm simply going to say we're all here today because we absolutely support the Prime Minister. And I think we can't answer that question on behalf of folks that have already made comments. We are here today. We are a united front. And again, we are truly looking forward to working for Canadians. And again, looking forward to working with my caucus colleagues and also all parties, because Canada is the best country in the world. And we have to ensure that we put our best foot forward in moving forward in wanting to work collaboratively with the U.S. Administration that's coming in very, very soon. And again, we're all excited to do the work that's ahead. Encore une fois, je tiens à dire que nous sommes ici aujourd'hui comme membre du cabinet.
A few comments there from a couple of cabinet ministers. Cabinet minister from the Halifax area, Darren Fisher, and from New Brunswick, Jeanette Petitpas Taylor, who will now assume the role of president of the Treasury Board, so overseeing the Federal Public Service. No real comments on whether they have confidence in Mr. Trudeau's leadership or what's ahead for Mr. Trudeau's leadership, other than it is, quote unquote, a united front. Coming up right after the news, it's Talkback. It's our last Talkback for this year for us. So we'd love to hear from you. It is the Friday free-for-all. So you know how we roll during the Friday free-for-all. It's open line, open topic. Whatever happens to be on your mind, politics is the big news story of the day. But if you have something else you would like to raise, feel free to do so. We'd love to hear from you, even if it's just so we can wish you a best of the holiday season, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. 1-833-668-2577. Phone lines open right after the news. You're on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Well, welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the biggest issues of the day. And today it is the Friday free-for-all. And it also just happens to be our last Talkback for this year. After this week, we will be away until the 2nd of January, 2025. So this is your last chance to have at us. Give us a call and share your opinion on whatever it is that happens to be on your mind. That's how we roll during the Friday free-for-all. It's open line, open topic. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. We don't come up with the topics on Friday. We've been doing that all week, and what a week it has been. And it's not over yet. But today, it's your turn. What do you want to talk about? We've been doing that all week. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about something that's been in the news? We're good to go. You want to talk about something that you think should be in the news? You can raise it here. If you want to just call in, wish us a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, let us do the same to you. We would love nothing more. Whatever it happens to be, within reason, we're here to hear you out, and we'll just try to follow along. Again, 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that to David. David's screening the calls today, and we'll make your call a priority. 1-833-668-2577. I've been all wrapped up in the political news of the week because it's been a heck of a week on that front. It's a week, I'll tell you, I'll never forget. I've been shocked by the Trudeau government before, but and Mr. Trudeau for that matter, but really never to this extent. I mean, for example, I think back to some of the events when I've been covering the Trudeau government. I thought he looked ridiculous when he went to India with Sophie, and they were constantly wearing all that formal garb. And I remember speaking with the late Matthew Fisher, the great Canadian foreign correspondent who was in India at the time, and he told me this would be like a foreign dignitary coming to Canada, and everywhere they went, they wore wedding dresses and tuxedos. That's how ridiculous it was. I certainly recall the day the SNC-Lavalin story broke on the front page of the Globe and Mail, and Mr. Trudeau saying that wasn't true, and even though it was true, and I remember saying to one of our news reporters, the only thing that would make this story even more juicy was if Jody Wilson-Raybould had tapes of her conversations, like Watergate style, and, as it turned out, she did have tapes of her conversations, at least with the former clerk of the Privy Council. And what did Mr. Trudeau do, right? He demoted her, and then he turfed her, and then he turfed her friend, Jane Philpott. And now it's Chrystia Freeland's turn to get run over by the Prime Minister's bus. Blackface, blackface revelations from Mr. Trudeau that he dressed up in blackface so many times, he couldn't remember how many times. And it always kind of struck me as weird. I mean, who does that? But he survived all of that. And he's been Prime Minister for more than 9 years. 9 years and 2 months. Justin Trudeau is Prime Minister, the 7th longest serving Prime Minister in Canadian history, just behind Stephen Harper. And you'd think he'd love to pass Stephen Harper on that list. I'm not sure it's going to happen. Not sure if he's going to make it until next fall as Liberal leader. I'm not sure if he'll make it to the end of the day or the end of the month. I would say his birthday, Justin Trudeau's birthday, is Wednesday of next week. He will turn 53 years old. He was born on Christmas Day because, of course, he was. And take it from me, birthdays in your 50s, that is always a time of reflection about what you've done in life and what you still want to do in your life. And he may want to stay. He may want to leave. But even if he doesn't want to leave, he may not have a say in the matter. They might try and push him out, although efforts to do that so far have been pretty feeble. So if he goes, there are a lot of dominoes could fall. Any number of scenarios could be in play. I'd love to talk about some of those today with you if you want. There are two things I can't get enough of. One of them is politics and the other is football. And I'm willing to engage in a chat about politics today. It's been a heck of a week. And if that's what you want to talk about, I'm happy to hear you out. But it could be something about anything. 1-833-668-2577 because it's the Friday free-for-all. Let's go to Jeff in Calgary. Jeff, you're up first today on the Talkback. Hi, Jeff.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm good, Jeff. What's on your mind?
Well, I think people are distracted by what's going on in Ottawa, and I think I heard it on your show a while back that nothing in politics happens that isn't planned. Mm-hmm. Now, I think that Justin Trudeau knows that he is the most unpopular person in this country right now.
Okay.
And I think this is all part of the plan to get Chrystia Freeland into a leadership position in the Liberal Party and run in the next election. Well, how do you boost her image with Canadians? Right?
Okay.
Other than pitting her against the most unpopular leader that the country has seen in quite some time.
Okay, so who orchestrated it?
The Liberal Party. They know that Justin Trudeau is about to lead them to one of the most historic defeats in the party's history.
Okay.
Justin Trudeau doesn't want it. He doesn't want that hung around his neck. So, how do you exit? And in the meantime, he just.
So, do you think Justin Trudeau was part of this scheme, if you will?
100%.
Oh, really? Okay, I don't see it that way. No.
Okay. Well, look at what happened on Monday. He walked out of his office on Monday night, grinning like a skunk eating onions.
Yeah, he always does that, though.
You can't tell me that at the end of that day. So why? The question is, why would he do that? He just tabled a mini budget where he spent more money than people can wrap their heads around. And not one person in the country asked him one question about it. Now, why is that? Because they were so distracted with what else is going on.
Of course. Yeah. I think they thought Chrystia Freeland is so loyal to us. She's been with us for more than 10 years because she had been there since before he was Prime Minister Trudeau, ever since he was just the leader of the third party. So I think he thought that she would just go with whatever it is he told her to do. And she had other plans, and I think, yes, I do. And she has her own political ambitions. This is politics, sir. And if it means knifing her boss in the back or even in the front when she feels hard done by, betrayed, and seizing that opportunity to create an opening for herself and getting a jump start on a Liberal leadership campaign, I think totally. I think that's the more plausible scenario. I think Mr. Trudeau was totally caught off guard by that. That's what the reports would indicate. Only found out 2 hours before she posted that thing on social media. Got to run. Thank you, though, Jeff. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that stuff. Be right back. We're off and running now, aren't we? Friday Free for All Talkback Hour. With the week ending like it began, we're talking about politics again. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's the Friday Free for All Talkback Hour. It's our last Talkback of 2024, so have your say. Let's go to Tom in Cambridge. Hi there, Tom.
How you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Tom. What's on your mind?
Well, okay. I'm just wondering that it's been a really interesting end of the year. I'm looking forward to what's in store for 2025. I wonder if Mr. Poilievre is going to distance himself or not even acknowledge that Spotify is now investing with his wife's business interests. And I'm wondering would the Governor General actually step in and maybe talk to Mr. Trudeau and ask him to resign.
No, she can't do that.
Can't do that? Oh, there was that was a question someone asked me. Who was Mr. Trudeau's boss? And I thought it was the Governor General. But okay, so now we've answered that question. Now, other than that, Rob, you've done a great. I stumbled on your show really by accident, and I really have enjoyed your platform, giving us the viewers an opportunity to express and listening to our points of view, whether they're right or wrong, and that. And I just want to wish you guys a happy Merry Christmas, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and all the best to you guys. Looking forward to 2025.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, bye-bye. Yeah, all the best to you and your family as well, Tom, there in Cambridge. Frequent caller to the show. Chris in Kitchener up next on the Friday Free for All. Hi, Chris.
How are you today?
Good, Chris. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
So we're entering in a very busy travel time where a lot of people on the road getting to families. I would like to make something of a public service announcement. As a truck driver, Can you please use your signal as an indicator that you would like to move over, not that you're moving over right away? I've almost rear-ended 3-4 people because they are entitled. And just today, that's like a regular daily occurrence. And you signal, you look over your shoulder. Is there space? Is the person going to make space? Can I leave? Can I move? Like, it takes about a minute or two.
Yeah.
It's not, hey, let's signal and move over now. Like, I really want to see people be patient. You're not entitled. Driving is a privilege, not a right.
That's right. Yes. So patience on the highways, which will be very busy, of course, in the coming days. Very good point, Chris. Thank you for your call. Good to hear from you today. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to you. 1-833-668-2577 and 1-833-668-2577. Friday, Free for All Talkback Hour. It's open line, open topic today. A couple of lines available there for you. Wait won't be too long. In Calgary, Iva in Calgary. Hi there.
Good afternoon.
What's on your mind?
I'd like to talk about unions. I would really like to see all unions dissolved. Companies would save so much money. They can't fire people because of the union, even if they don't do their work. They can take stress leave for 6 weeks, 8 weeks at a time, go back to work, and do it all over again repetitively. How much money would companies save if there weren't unions? And unions have talked companies right out of business because they want too much. And there's people out there that are willing to do that job for a decent wage. And most companies pay decent wages now.
So what has led you to form this opinion?
Well, let's see. I know that they talked a pulp mill right out of business in the East years ago, a steel foundry here in Calgary, a mine out in BC, and I know people who work for the union, and that's exactly what they do. They've got people working for them that aren't doing their jobs, but they can't fire them because they're in a union.
All right. So you think unions should be abolished?
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
My uncle wanted to start a union here in the 60s, and he went to one of the top lawyers to see about starting it. And he told him point blank, unions have their place in time, but they are going to be non-existent at some point in time. And I think now is the time. Canada Post going on strike, CP. I mean, if people don't want to do their jobs, there are people out there that are qualified that can do that job.
Okay.
For the
look,
same
I'm not a
money
big
or more.
union guy. I'm not a big union guy. I've never been in a union. I have no interest in joining a union or forming a union. But I do differ from you. I don't think unions should be abolished. If people want to unionize and fight for better working conditions as a collective, I think totally they should have that right. And the fact is, a lot of the benefits and worker protections that even non-unionized workers enjoy right now, it's because of the fight and the battles and the sacrifices of the labor movement in this country. And that's coming from a guy who's not a left-wing guy, not a big union guy. That's just a fact. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback. Friday, free-for-all Talkback. Open line, open topic, whatever's on your mind today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday, free-for-all Talkback. Last Talkback of the year. Greg in Halifax, you're on the air. What's on your mind today, Greg?
How you doing, sir? First time caller.
Good. Appreciate that,
listen.
Greg. Go ahead.
But, with this Trudeau stuff, and it's kind of sad what's going on here because, he talks about his father. Well, his father knew when it was time to leave, okay? He saw the handwriting. Mm-hmm. Same thing as Brian Mulroney. He knew when it was time to leave. And, it seems to me, if I was him, it's best to leave and have your legacy intact. That's what people are going to remember. Now that if he goes, all they're going to remember him by is this mess here. And there's an expression I heard one time. It's better to leave by the door than to be shown the door. And I think
pretty good expression.
Trudeau,
yeah.
I think Mr. Trudeau is, it shouldn't be showing the door because, it's going to take away from all the good stuff that he did do. Yes, they did. Because that's all people are going to remember by this mess. And to me, politicians are like athletes, you can only go so far and eventually, well, okay, that's enough, you have to go. And I just hope he does because if he keeps staying, it's just going to add more fuel to the fire and people are going to be more and more upset and mad. And they're going to take it out on the Liberal Party. And, what's going to be left with them in the next election? Not much. If it keeps going like this. And that's what I have to say.
You make great points. You make great points. You really do. Thank you for your call, Greg. Good to hear from you. Very little to disagree with there. Linda in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Linda. You're on the air. Hi there. What's on your mind today?
Good morning, Rob. I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
And thank
same to
you
you.
for a year of very interesting conversation.
Well,
But
it's
I
been
do
quite a year.
have
It really
a
has.
inquiry, I guess, or, thought. Most prime ministers, once they leave office, they go into, lawyer or consulting business or whatever. I'm just wondering what school will be hiring a drama teacher here in Canada.
I don't know. I have thought about that. If, let's say, Mr. Trudeau in the next few weeks or months or whenever it happens, if it happens at all, decides I'm out of here, and you can have the Liberal leadership race and choose the successor, and I'm going to leave public life, public office. What is he going to do? Still a young man. He's the same age as me. As I said, he's going to turn 53 next week. Okay. Still lots of life left. But what is he going to do? I think he'll probably, probably write a book, go on, being on the speaker's circuit, so to speak, pays a lot of money, right? He was doing that before he even got into politics. That was a bit of a money-making machine for him before he even got into politics. He was charging charities for speeches, you may remember. His mother has made money making speeches. His estranged wife has made money making speeches. There'll be somebody looking to hire Justin Trudeau to make a speech somewhere. He can probably make a pretty good living doing that. Not that he needs the money. Thank you for your call. Merry Christmas to you too, Linda. Happy New Year. Be right back after the news on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday free-for-all talkback hour, so it's open line, open topic, whatever's on your mind today. Brett in Waterloo, you're on the air. Brett, what do you want to talk about, Brett?
How are you doing today, Rob?
I'm good, Brett. What's on your mind?
Just a very quick comment with regards to unions and so on. There was a lady that had called in earlier, and I'm not sure I completely agree with her perspective on dismantling unions entirely. I think they do have, in some industries, a place. But I think along with her sentiment, I do agree that the relevance has been severely diminished in today's society anyways. More to the point, I just wanted to comment on with a number of the strikes that we've had to deal with the last couple of years and prior. My perspective has always been that if you are a publicly funded entity or a government-funded or a taxpayer-funded entity, regardless of what that is, that they should not have the right to strike, but unless, of course, we as taxpayers have the right to, strike on paying taxes. I don't understand. There seems to be a big disconnect on that. And maybe that's just I haven't given this a lot of thought, but it's something that has bothered me, where our taxes are required to be paid on a municipal, provincial, and federal level, and where those monies are directed to people. I'm not completely comfortable with the right to strike. But on the other hand, if it's a privately owned enterprise, that's a different story. But publicly funded, if the taxpayers are paying for it, I don't believe the right to strike, at least as it's defined today, should be a possibility. That was it.
So like somebody, say where you are, Brett, in Waterloo, who collects the garbage and recycling, that person shouldn't be allowed to go on strike and fight for higher wages and better benefits, better job security?
If it's taxpayer funded, again, I'm sure there's examples where where there may
teachers?
be.
Okay, let's talk about teachers paid for, by provincial taxpayers. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable unless, again, because we as the citizens, part of the tax base are paying for it. There just seems to be a disconnect there. To be able to withdraw services when we're the ones that are being forced to pay it, and we have to continue paying for it, whether or not the strike exists.
Okay.
It just does.
It's a charter protected right. You understand that, right? In the Charter of Rights, people have freedom of association. Association largely meaning the right to unionize.
Sure. Yeah, I understand
you would have to, and good luck with that. I know. You'd somehow have to amend the Charter of Rights in order to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem right that you're required to pay for something that whereby the services that are funded by that money can be withdrawn.
I understand what you're saying, sir. Yeah. Okay. I don't agree with it. Yep. But I appreciate you sharing your opinion. I do. I really do. Thank you. Thank you. Topic that kind of came out of left field today, or is it right field? Eric in Halifax. Hi, Eric.
Bob, first of all, I want to thank you for putting up with me for a whole year.
That's okay, Eric.
And I want to wish you and all the people up there the best of the holidays. And here's hoping that 2025 is not disastrous as 2024 has been. And I like to ask, I wish he had taken questions. I would have asked him, if the shoe was on the other foot, what would he do? I mean, they don't want Trudeau to quit. I don't think he's a quitter, but I wonder what the PC guy would do. Would he quit, or would he stand there and fight and do the same as Trudeau's doing? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. If Pierre Poilievre wins the next election, he'll just be at the start of a mandate. Mr. Trudeau's been there 9 years and 2 months, and people are pretty sick of it.
9 years and 2 months, that's true. But I said it here the other day, and it's an old cliche. A new broom sweeps good for a while. Then you have to get rid of it. I'm just wondering, and I asked this question over and over.
So how well does a 9-year-old broom sweep then, Eric?
It doesn't sweep. You have to get rid of it eventually. But I'm just saying, though.
Yeah, well,
I mean, what would the PC guy do? I can't pronounce his name, so I got to say the PCs.
Poilievre.
I like to know what he would do. I like to put him on the spot and say, if the tables were turned, what would you be doing, Mr. Poilievre? I can't even say his last name.
Well, he's a politician just like all of them. He'd probably want to hang on to the job for dear life for as long as possible, I suspect.
Well, then he's a hypocrite then, because he's calling the kettle black. I mean, here he is trying to push a guy out, and if he was in the same boat, he would probably do the same thing.
Well, he's the leader. He is the leader of the opposition. He's Justin Trudeau's main political opponent. He can see, he's basically measuring the drapes for the Prime Minister's residence already. Of course, he wants to see the back end of Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, well,
a lot of other Canadians. So do a lot of other Canadians. If you're still supporting Justin Trudeau, you are in the minority in this country, sir. In every single part of the country. Where you are, in British Columbia, where I am, in the province of Quebec, even in Toronto, which is like a liberal fortress. I mean, the Conservatives lost a by-election this summer in Toronto, which really kind of got the ball rolling. If you ask me,
because I was brought up in Ontario, they're blue all the way. I mean, they've had more PC powers than you can shake a stick at.
Well, at the provincial level. Provincial level,
sure. Yeah. So I mean, the Liberals. I can't say anything about that because I don't follow it that much.
All right. Okay. Like I said, look, I got to wrap it up. I've got to take some other calls, but look, I thank you for your calls all year long, Eric. It's been great to.
Looking forward to talking to you next year, Rob.
Sure thing, bud. Yeah, you call anytime. Thank you. We'll stop here. Bob, you hang on the line. We'll get you on before the top of the hour newscast. And we have some lines available if you want to participate in the conversation today. It's Talkback. It's the Friday free-for-all, so it's open line, open topic. Wherever you want to take the conversation, we'll do our best to follow along. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And again, we have lines available today, Friday, free-for-all Talkback Hour. We're open line, open topic. It's the last Talkback of the year. We're away next week. We won't be back until the 2nd of January. Nice break for me and David. Let's go to Truro, Nova Scotia. Bob is in Truro. Hi there. Bob, what's on your mind?
How are you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Bob. Thank you.
I was listening to Todd's show about an hour ago, and someone came on saying that the immigrants that had come to Canada relatively recently were thinking of leaving Canada. Well, for God's sake, I don't know where they would go. I came here recruited as an aerospace engineer in 1982, and my wife is a registered nurse to live in Ontario. And in that year, there were 80,000 people came from the UK to live in Canada. I think there was 250,000 total immigrants in that time, all coming for a good and new life. And it's incredibly better to live in Canada, a better standard of living for blue-collar workers. And the thing is, it's when you ask people where is the best country in the world, ask somebody from Belgium, and they say Belgium. Ask somebody from Holland, they say Holland. Germany, the same. India, you name it, they all think that that's the best country in the world. But the proof of the pudding is in the fact that people are clambering. You know, Americans said they've got the best country, but yet thousands every year come to live in Canada. And I can ask you this question, and all the people listening to the show. Do you know anybody who has ever left Canada? Canadians think of emigrating. Do they want to go somewhere else? Have you ever heard anybody speak of that? I know some people get transferred for the jobs, but Canadians don't want to emigrate, and that is the proof of the pudding. This is the best.
I have heard people, for example, in the, Bob, if I could just interrupt there, I have heard some people in the technology sector say, for example, that they would like to go to California and work in Silicon Valley and pay lower taxes and earn U.S. dollars, for example.
Well, when we came in 1982, there was 80,000 people from the UK came to live and work in Canada. Do you know I'm a retired engineer, and I look at Stats Canada. I read the book all the time. Do you know how many people left Canada in 1982 to go and live in another country?
No idea. No.
There were 8.
8. Okay.
And they all came from the same place in Ontario.
But let's say, let's take the circumstance here as we close out 2024, and you're an engineer, whatever, civil engineer, mechanical engineer, whatever, and you've come to Canada hoping for a better life, and you've come from, I don't know, some part of India, but you can't get a job as an engineer. You can only get a job driving for Skip the Dishes, and you can't afford an apartment. You can only afford a room with 10 other people in a house somewhere. And you apply for better you apply for better jobs, and you're up against 500 other people for the same job. Wouldn't you feel that the Canadian dream maybe hasn't lived up to the billing?
No, I don't think so, because if you go back generations in Canada, you find that people have taken tough times in the stride and built this country to be the good country that it is. And back to those 8 people who left in 1982 to live somewhere else, they all came from one place, Penetangwisheen. And do you know what Penetangwisheen is famous for?
I should know that, but I don't.
In Canada for the criminally insane.
Biggest jail.
Do you know how many people escaped from that prison in 1982?
No, I don't know. These facts are no.
That was the 8 people.
You're having fun with me. You're having fun with me, Bob. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Okay. That's funny. That's very funny. Okay. Shabir in Calgary. Shabir, thanks for calling. You're on the air. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey, I think I heard Pierre say that Jagmeet hasn't called an election because Jagmeet is waiting for his pension to kick in February. Is that correct? Is that what he said?
That's what he has said that repeatedly. He said that with me when I interviewed him today, but it's not the first time he's said it. Yeah.
I just find it kind of like rich coming from Pierre. He said that, and yet he's been an MP for, I think, 15 years at least.
20 years.
And
since 2004.
20 years.
Yeah.
Sorry, since 2004.
4.
Okay. So I wonder how much pension he's collecting, and I don't know. He might have said this.
He will get
I
a
might
very
have
good
missed
pension, sir. You don't have to pass the hat for Pierre Poilievre. He qualified for his pension before he turned 30, I believe.
So he's a definition of a career politician, and he's taking shots at Jagmeet, who I think who's also been in public office for a very long time. But
well, not in federal public office. Not in federal public office. He will have 6 years as an MP as of February 25th. He was in provincial politics before that time in the Ontario legislature. He was a member of the provincial parliament. He was an MPP in Ontario, but MPPs in Ontario, they don't get any pension at all. There's no pension plan. There used to be a pension plan. Mike Harris did away with it.
I see. So,
but I guess here's the question. Why isn't he's out there now today saying, I'm going to bring down the government when we come back. When we come back, I'm going to defeat the government. I'm going to defeat Justin Trudeau's government. There were just 10 confidence votes a week and a half ago. What's changed in the last week and a half? Probably
that all these stuff that's going on within the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly. Okay. I don't really have a comment on that, to be honest. I just found it hypocritical how Pierre was calling out on Jagmeet.
I understand that. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not like he said he's not going to take his pension, did he, Pierre?
No, he will. So. He will probably. He's not going to turn down his pension. No, I highly doubt that. And he will get a very rich pension because, of course, the pension payout is based on how long you've served in the House of Commons.
I see.
Right.
And what did Pierre do before he was a politician?
He was a staffer on Parliament Hill.
So more political career, like I don't know.
Sure, but he's been a politician. He's been a member of Parliament since he's 24 years old, sir. So
I see.
Yeah, he's a political animal. Politics is what he does. It's what he does, and it's all he's ever done, and it's as a grown up. So it's fair criticism. Thank you, Shabir. Be right back. More of your calls just ahead. This is News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So Friday, free for all Talkback. That means you come up with the topics. We're done doing that for the week and for this year. It's your turn. Anissa in Cambridge. It's on your mind, Anissa.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Go ahead.
Good. So I wanted to answer one of Bob's comments regarding people that are leaving Canada and just remind him that there are many people that are leaving Canada from the healthcare industry. They get trained and then recruited to go work in the U.S.
Okay.
So that's a significant loss of talent that we're having in that training area. But then the other comment that I had was specifically to the unions, which seems to be an issue today.
I'm not sure why.
I think one of the problems is that people lack transparency with the agreements that they're being made, especially with the public servants that are funded by the public. So when you have a public that is currently feeling the tax pinch and the lack of jobs that we have, or the lack of stable jobs that we have, or you have to have 2 part-time jobs in order to make up a full-time wage, and the public opinion that they're trying to garner is, we work in the snow and the sleet and the sun and the rain, and we carry heavy packages, and we want 24%, or whatever the case may be at this point, whether or not they're going to agree to it.
It was 24% originally. They backed down to 19.
Right. And then but in the first year, they want 9% of that 19.
They wanted 9. Yeah, that's right.
So I think if there was more transparency in what they were actually looking for, I would think that as a publicly funded entity that is in a money loss situation, because they're in a significant deficit, that anything that we agree to as the public, we agree to have these services, we agree to pay for them, but what we don't have is transparency in what the collective bargaining agreement actually states. and what both parties, we get the snippets of the information in the news, what they're willing to disclose. But I think Canadians would be far more comfortable if we actually knew the details and how easy it is for some of these workers, the ones that everybody complains about, they protect the laziest worker, are actually benefiting or receiving through this collective bargaining agreement that, regular Canadians don't necessarily have access to. I just think there needs to be more transparency, and I think people would have a little easier time fighting off what they're trying to feed them.
All right. Interesting points. Thank you, Anissa, for raising those points today. That's hour number 1 of Talkback. We're back right after the latest breaking news on a very busy news day. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
And here we go again. Friday Free for All Talk Back Hour. Open line, open topic. Whatever happens to be on your mind. Our last show of the year. So the stage is yours. We will follow your lead. 1-833-668-2577. Andre in Kitchener, you're up next. Andre.
Hi, Rob. I'm going to start by saying Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday to you and to your elf, David.
Okay. I'm sure he appreciates
Thanks,
that.
Andre. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great show.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that, like you and other people that I heard professionally say that Mr. Trudeau did not expect from Chrystia Freeland to for what she did. I don't know how to say things about the politics. I'll leave that to you. But I think he underestimated her, and she is a very strong woman, and I really appreciate that because since birth, my warrior, my God, is my mother, and she's been gone 11 years, and I have a lot of respect, and I really hope one day that we have a prime minister that is a woman because. That's my opinion. But for other people that don't know, the word, even myself as a Frenchman, Poilievre in English means jackrabbit with polka dots. So he is who he is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you have a great day. Great show.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
Tomorrow's my birthday, Rob. So
well, happy birthday.
Canada.
Happy birthday to you. Yeah, good for you. Thank you.
my friend.
Thank you. Look, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you, Andre. Great to hear from you. I mean, just on all the liberal drama, I mean, it all kind of starts and ends with Justin Trudeau. Will Justin Trudeau leave? Will Justin Trudeau go? I would just say it's quite possibly the worst time for this kind of drama, given what's happening in the United States and the threat of tariffs from the incoming U.S. president. That could really hurt our economy. This is just terrible, terrible timing. And I don't know what Justin Trudeau was thinking when he went to that event and suggested that the defeat of Kamala Harris in the U.S. election was some great step back for the women's movement. There was no need for that. And then, of course, just days later, he's doing what he did to Chrystia Freeland. And we have these reports today, PMO caught off guard by her resignation after being told she was getting dumped in favor of a man and being demoted, and yet still expected to spin the government's line on the economy. Like, how did they think it was going to go over? I think it's just totally irrational to think you can treat people that way. Imagine this. I mean, here it is Friday. Like, your boss comes to you and says, Dave, we want you to do a double shift on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we're going to fire you.
Don't do that.
Like, who's doing the double shift on Monday?
Yeah.
I mean, are they smoking the drapes in the Prime Minister's office? What are they doing? I'm leaning towards Trudeau is going to call it quits, just not right now. Because then it's going to look like Freeland took him out. So I think he's going to wait, and then sometime in the new year, maybe early in the new year, he's going to call it quits and try to make it sound as though Freeland's thing didn't have anything to do with it, but nobody's going to buy that. And then I think he's going to prorogue. And there's going to be a Liberal leadership race, and they're going to put someone new in there. And then that person, because they prorogued, they'll have to bring forward a throne speech to be a vote on that. And then the government's going to go down to defeat, and there's going to be an election. And I think that could take place in March or April. I'm not saying for certain that's what's going to happen. Nobody knows for certain what's going to happen, but that's how I'm leaning right now. And it'll all be underway. Freeland, Jolie, Anand, Champagne, Carney, Christy Clark, maybe a few lesser knowns will enter the race. Dark horses, and the two front runners are Freeland and Carney. Dale and Kitchener up next on the Friday Free for All Talkback Hour. Hi, Dale.
How you doing, Rob? There.
Wow, good, Dale.
So many great topics to jump in on, so I'm only going to pick one, obviously. But I'd like to pick up on what a couple of your callers in the previous segment talked about with collective agreements and unions, and particularly with respect to government workers. So I'm not anti-union at all. I think unions have a really strong and vibrant role to play. But when it does come to government employees, teachers, any government worker, sure, unionize, collective agreements, bargain. But I think the right to strike should not be there. I think by default, if you're a government worker, if you're paid entirely by tax dollars, you are,
right,
in my opinion, a de facto a necessary employee. So I think if two sides, the employer, the government, or the workers, the union, can't reach a contract agreement, then it automatically goes to binding arbitration, third-party arbitration, and that could go good for the government. That could go bad for the government. I think both sides.
It usually goes better for the worker. If I could just interrupt, traditionally it goes better for the worker, and you end up paying more for the public for the whatever the public service happens to be through your taxes.
That goes on strike. That's usually it hurts the employer the most. But when public workers goes on strike, it hurts the customers the most, which is us. So I think that, it's the striking part that people get really upset about, not the fact that they're unionized. Being unionized is fine. Having collective agreements and trying to get a better work balance, better pay, those are all good things. But it's the striking which hurts all of us customers that we've paid for that bothers people. And I think they should be essential workers, and it just goes to binding arbitration, and you don't strike.
Right. But I don't know. Do you view again, I come back to this, what do you view as essential and what's not essential?
Well, I think if you're 100% paid for by tax dollars, you're by default essential. Else why would we be paying for that?
Okay. There are 376,000 people who work for just the federal government. Okay? You think every one of them's essential?
Well, if they're not, then maybe they shouldn't all be there. That's a whole. It's a related, but maybe a tangential question. But I just find it. I think all taxpayers find it annoying when what we consider essential services to us, because we've paid for them, are withdrawn, and always at the worst possible time. Because the government and the union can't reach an agreement, and we do have a binding arbitration process.
I know, but maybe the union doesn't want to go on strike because it wants to. That's when it will have the most leverage on the employer.
Sure.
Look at me. You've got me. What are you people doing to me? Like I'm not the left-wing union defender guy here, but this
I get it, but it's a private company. The worst thing that could happen is that private company could go out of business. But when it's a government operation, that's not going to happen. It's just,
I'm just going to tell you, if you're going to constantly do that and eliminate the right to strike and everything gets sent off to binding arbitration, you are going to pay more, potentially a lot more, for your public services. Because what is going to happen is the arbitrator is going to go, okay, what's been the most recent contract that was awarded, or what is the highest contract that was awarded? Oh, here it is. Whatever. 5, 5, and 5 for the next 3 years when inflation is, 2%. You're going to pay more. Because when it goes to binding arbitration, almost always the union comes out on top. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Right back to the phones on a Friday free-for-all Talkback hour. Winston in Lethbridge. Hello, Winston.
Hey, Rob.
Hi there.
How you doing?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Well, I got some issues since you guys always talk politics on the radio here.
Yeah.
I just want to ask some questions about our government and our future, our past governments and our present governments. Why all the treaties in Canada from 1 to 11 and have never been fulfilled and have been broken. You know, our Indigenous people throughout Canada do a lot of suffer a lot because of these broken treaties, and and then we have you know, I'm not racist or anything, but there's a lot of in the recent years, there's a lot of immigrants that come to Canada and they get all kind of funding and all kinds of help, and yet our First Nations people struggle on our own lands.
Yeah.
The whole
so you're First
country of
Nations?
Canada.
You're a member of a First Nation, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And we struggle with water issues, we struggle with housing, and many issues throughout Canada, and from east to west, and you know, and nothing has been fulfilled through our treaties, and they just break down our treaties, keep trying to break these treaties down till there ain't no more treaties, you know. Okay.
You know, it's such a big issue. It's kind of beyond me to answer that question. I don't really have an answer for you. One of the things that I have always wondered when it comes to the living conditions, specifically on reserves, is why do some reserves seem to thrive while others continue to struggle? Why is that?
Well, I think
some reserves seem to be doing very well. For example, there's a reserve, Mi'kmaq Reserve on Cape Breton Island called Member 2, which it's booming. Like, it's probably the most prosperous part of Cape Breton Island is the reserve, that Member 2 reserve, which when I was living there, not on the reserve, but near there, it was the third world, quite honestly. And it's just been completely transformed in one generation. I don't know why. And yet there's a reserve 30 minutes away where there's been almost no change in living conditions whatsoever. Ramshackle houses, no employment, lots of substance abuse and mental health issues. Why is that?
Well, I can't really answer that myself, but I know that a lot of reserves, which are so isolated, are the ones that struggle so much, and the reserves that are closer to big cities and the population, they're the ones who are thriving and who are doing good. And then along with our own governments, they have, like, our governments are supposedly supposed to be run by our chief and councils. But they have Indian Affairs, who really these chief and these councils have to listen to, and whatever they say basically goes. And then the chief and council, if they don't listen to them, then their funding is cut short.
Okay. I know at the end of the Harper years, let me ask you this. We'll have to wrap it up here. At the end of the Harper years, the relationship, Crown Indigenous relationship, was not good. Okay?
Yeah.
And Mr. Trudeau promised to make this a priority, and certainly a lot of money has flowed out of Ottawa to various First Nations all across the country. A lot of it mandated by the courts, like lawsuits that have been lost and whatnot. Would you say it has improved under Mr. Trudeau?
Oh, no, it's been going on since his dad was in government, way before his dad was in government. When the governments first sent Indian agents out west to supposedly help govern our people were thriving until the buffalo were gone.
Yeah.
And that was our livelihood. And once those buffalo were gone, anybody who's hungry trying to feed their children's gonna run for rations or anything like that, right? So, but with Trudeau, right now he's got his foot somewhere else where it shouldn't be, and he should be.
Okay.
He's a split tongue. He's a liar. He says he's going to do one thing, and he's totally breaking treaties with all First Nations across Canada.
Okay. Look, Winston, I wish you all the best, sir. But thank you so much. Hopefully things will improve someday. I appreciate your call. Okay.
Many blessings.
All the best to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. We'll be right back. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we're kind of winding down things here for Talkback after the news at the bottom of the hour, because listeners in other markets have not heard the interview we did today with the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. We did quite a lengthy interview, kind of a year in review kind of thing. We did touch on all the hot issues, the cabinet shuffle, the future of the prime minister and all that stuff. So that's coming up right after the news. So our phone lines we'll close the phone lines there for a while so we can give you that interview with Canada's Newsmaker of the Year, Pierre Poilievre, for the second year in a row. So let's get right back to the phones here. Kyle in Listowel. Hi there, Kyle.
Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Kyle. Go ahead.
Perfect. All right, first of all, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Kyle. Same to you.
I just want to make a comment. A couple of days ago, you had a topic about what people thought about Pierre Poilievre, and a lot of people are saying they don't like the way he talks, and they think it's condescending and things like that. And that really bugs me, because if finally we have somebody that tells it right to the point. I'm tired of how soft and politically correct we've become, such a country where we have to be careful about anything we say. I don't care what the guy says, as long as it's right and he's going to make my country a better country than what it is, then I'll be happy to have a leader like that. I don't want a leader that's going to put another $20 billion over deficit. I don't want a leader that's going to tell somebody that he's for women, and next thing you know, he's firing women and putting people under the bus. I don't want a leader that drives a Maserati, that thinks he knows more about the working class and things like that. I want a leader that's actually going to be here for the country. And if somebody doesn't like the way he talks, tough. That's very tough on your end. Big deal. Move on. You don't have to vote for that person. But I finally have somebody that's going to put Canada first, and who's going to have, a strong presence for not just Canada, but when he goes and visits other countries, at least he's going to be a businessman that's going to try to make Canada a better place. So that's what I got to say, Rob. I'm sorry for the little bit of a rant, but it just kind of bugs me the way,
Yeah,
so,
that's
anyways,
fine.
Merry Christmas, my friend. Enjoy it.
Yep.
Hopefully you're going to get lots of presents. So thanks, Rob. Appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for all your calls. And look, let me just close this segment by saying, don't forget about the Seeker app. If you're looking for a podcast of our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, we have the Seeker app, Seekr, Seekr. All kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports. And you can listen to Now You Know with Rob Snow and Talkback at your leisure. Download Seeker for iOS or Android. Seeker, Seekr. And Now You Know with Rob Snow. Look for it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, we made it. This is our last show of the year. We are away next week, and we won't return until Thursday, the 2nd of January. But while we have a few minutes, There are some people we would like to thank and some gratitude to express. David, you go first.
Well, I'll keep it short and sweet. First, thank you, Rob, for doing what you do. You're a great host to work with, good friend, great mentor. And it's been a bit of a turbulent year behind the scenes around here. Lots of changes. I think we've come through it better than before, so good for us. Thank you to our bosses, Mark in Calgary, Amber in Toronto. Best bosses I've ever had. I'm not just saying that. Thank you to the listeners, all of the callers. There's no point in doing this show without you, and thank you for making us a part of your routine. We hope you continue to do that in the new year. And thank you to all of our colleagues as well across the country at News Radio, too many to name, doing the work every day in increasingly difficult conditions to keep local communities informed. This is the best news radio network in the country, bar none, and it's because of the tireless work of our dedicated reporters, anchors, and editors from Vancouver to Halifax. Thank you all. It's been a great year to be part of the team.
Yeah, I would echo all of David's comments. Putting on a radio show like this is never easy. We are a small but mighty team here on Now You Know. Just 3 people, me, David, and Andrea. Couldn't do the show without Andrea answering all of those phone calls, and David is the glue that keeps it all together. And David, you know, I lean on you every day for advice and story ideas, and I really think you're on your way to becoming a major force in broadcasting and in podcasting, and I appreciate all of your hard work. I would also like to thank all of our regular contributors, all of our political panelists, and Professor Ian Lee and Tom Korski from Blacklocks, and syndicated columnist Michael Taube and Barry McLoughlin from TLC. And of course, most of all, I want to thank you, our listeners and our callers. We might not always agree on everything, but we always disagree without being disagreeable. And it's always good to have a battle of ideas. Our goal every day around here is simply to prove that critical thinking is not dead. So I am looking forward to resting and recharging, and I wish you all the very best of the season. Merry Christmas, and we will speak again in what promises to be a very busy 2025. I'm Rob Snow. The latest breaking news is next. This is News Radio.